Okay, so around 3 months ago, I made a video about the most broken metas in Counter-Strike, and that video did insanely well. But when I was reading all the comments, I found out I had missed a lot of metas. So now I decided to make a part 2 consisting of all the metas I had forgotten about. And to make this video easier to follow, I decided to once again separate it into 4 timelines. Starting with Danger Zone, which barely even had any metas that are worth mentioning, with the most unique, fun and powerful meta being the bumpmines. They were hands down one of the biggest reasons why so many people love Danger Zone as much as they did. Simply because you were able to use bumpmines to fly around the entire map. But they weren't just extremely fun to use. They were actually a must-have item if you wanted to win, since you could use them to either easily escape any situation, take high ground, or play extremely aggressively, since it was pretty much impossible for anybody to even hear you or see you coming. And the best part, it was very affordable. They came in sets of 3 and only set you back around $1,000. So it was fairly easy to constantly re-up on them. And if you combine them with the $500 shield, you were even able to perform stomp kills. By landing on your opponent's head with your shield out, you were able to kill anybody instantly regardless of the HP they had. And even if you missed, the shield was already broken to begin with. So all it took was 2 hits to the body to kill somebody with max HP. Now before we move on, I want to thank today's sponsor, SkinsMonkey. SkinsMonkey is a trading site that allows you to easily and instantly trade or upgrade your CS2 skins, while also offering a massive selection of skins to choose from. And by using my code SNIF, you can get an extra 5% bonus on your deposit, on top of the 30% the site already offers. And if you want to earn $5 for free, just use my code and trade up to $100 worth of skins. But don't worry, even if you don't have any skins, SkinsMonkey gives away free skins every day, so go check them out. Now moving on to older Counter-Strikes, where we have quite a few metas I completely missed. First up, we got the flashboost meta in Counter-Strike Source. That was essentially just bumpmines, but in regular competitive. But instead of using bumpmines to fly around, you would need a teammate to throw a flashbang under you while you were in the middle of a jump, boosting you to extreme heights and speeds. This was another meta that was just extremely fun to abuse, while also being insanely useful. Not only could you catch your opponents completely off guard by flying straight at them, but you could also use it to boost yourself into areas that just weren't normally even possible.
How the hell does he get up there?
He flies.
Is it a boost?
Yeah. No, it's like flying.
Oh my god.
If you go on the ladder a certain way, like
Oh my!
And while we're on the topic of getting into areas that aren't normally accessible, in 1.6 practically every map had either these insane pixel boost spots or regular boost spots that you could use where nobody would ever expect you. And if you're thinking that these were only used by a handful of casual players, you'd be wrong. Because if we look back at old 1.6 tournaments, we can see some of the top teams at the time abusing these exact type of boosts. Like this one on Dust 2 for an example, that was pretty risky to execute, but if you manage to pull it off, you can see it pays off quite well. Moving on though, as some of you might remember in my last meta video, I discussed how in CS Source the walls were completely paper thin, so you could pull off some crazy wallbangs. But something I completely forgot to mention is that this applied to nades as well, since HA grenades actually did damage through walls, which opened up so many different new possibilities and tactics that completely altered the way people played. With the most simple but effective nade I remember being on Nuke T side, where you could throw a grenade into hut to either kill or damage anybody on top of it. Next we got the long ago busted myth in CSGO that quick switching to your knife right after shooting and switching back allowed you to fire your AWP faster. Now although this isn't at all true in CSGO, despite practically everybody doing it, this was actually a thing in older Counter-Strikes before 1.6, allowing you to shoot your AWP just a tad bit faster, which in my opinion is actually completely fair, and should honestly still be a thing. Now moving on to CSGO, where we got the Tech 9 meta. Even right now the Tech 9 is still a very viable weapon, but in 2015 it was ridiculously broken. Firstly, it had 32 bullets, had nearly the same running speed as a knife, only costed $500, and was somehow even more accurate if you were running. But it didn't just end there. Back then the Tech 9 actually barely had a limit of how fast you were able to shoot it, And the person who was the face of the Tech 9 back then was Olaf Meister, who binded his scroll wheel to the shoot key to take advantage of the lack of a shooting limit, allowing him to shoot the Tech 9 at ridiculous speeds, which also inspired a lot of casual players to do the same thing, with some of them even taking it a step further by making a whole macro for it, to shoot as fast as possible. Next we got one of my favorite metas of all time, which is the Jump Scout meta. And for those of you who somehow didn't know, you were actually able to be completely accurate while jumping with the Scout, as long as you shot when you were either at the peak of your jump or if you were falling down. And I honestly have no clue why Valve even decided to remove this feature, as it actually took quite a bit of skill and made the Scout a lot more viable and just overall fun to use. Oh, and you were also able to expand on this trick by learning how to run and counter strafe in the middle of your jump and still be accurate. Moving on, we got the one-way smoke meta. I honestly can't believe I forgot to mention this in my last video. One-way smokes were one of the most stupid things that were in CSGO for the longest time. And it's not like nobody knew about it. Everybody at the highest level abused the absolute fuck out of it, and it literally took zero skill. All you needed was to learn a simple lineup and you could see your opponents through a small gap without them being able to see you. Next we got arguably one of the most hated metas of all time.
What has been like the worst meta in CSGO?
The worst meta in CSGO for sure, Augenkrieg.
He's between the Og and the Krieg.
Definitely the Krieg meta.
Cosmos, the SG meta.
And the story behind how this even became the meta is really odd, since neither of these two weapons actually got any buffs. They stayed the same for years, but when Valve decided to slightly reduce the cost of them both by $150 in 2019, suddenly everybody started using them, and discovered that they were actually pretty good. For an example, the AUG had better armor penetration, less bullet spread, and a versatile scope, but it always had those things. Only thing that changed was the price. But after enough people complained about it, Valve went ahead and nerfed it to the ground. Now lastly, we got the CZ or Pocket AK meta back in 2014, and during this time there was absolutely no reason to save, because you could buy the CZ for just $300. And even though it had only 24 bullets, it didn't really matter, because you were basically guaranteed to get a kill with it. It also used to have a really low draw time, instead of having to assemble the whole thing like you do now. Oh, and it also had a really fast fire rate, was accurate while running, and had a faster kill time than the M4. Finally moving on to CS2. So if you watched my last video, you'd know about the CS source meta on Office, where you could move props around to block off certain entranceways. And it turns out this was also briefly possible in CS2, but instead of only being able to partially block off certain areas, you were actually able to completely block off doorways and make them completely impossible to get through. And lastly, we got the Michael Jackson meta, that I'm convinced practically everybody tried at least once. And all you needed was a simple config of Reddit to completely confuse your enemy and make yourself harder to hit.